Hey everyone, what's going on? Super excited to be on the land of and with a brand new show. Hey brother, are you okay? Working title, maybe, hey brother, how are you really doing? Both work, but the sentiment remains true that we are here to have some honest, candid conversations with men and masculine identifying folk about how the hell are we? What's going on in our lives? What's going on in the world? And can we take off the masks that we tend to put on for everyone? And can we take off the armor of manhood and show the world what it's like to do some work and be vulnerable? We're going to go through a variety of topics, with tonight's being very, very pertinent. Charlie Kirk's shooting yesterday on September the 10th, 2025. We can talk about all things Charlie Kirk, the political engagement of conservative Gen Z men, how he was able to so effectively get so many of them to vote in the most recent election. What does it mean for our country? What does it mean going forward? And what does this have to do with masculinity? I'm going to be joined by two dear friends of mine, Nathan Emmerling and Jonathan Jacobs, who should be popping on just in a moment. Now, the reason why I chose Jonathan and Nathan for our first stream together is because both of them are men who are dear to my heart, but also both of them are men that bring a really authentic energy everywhere that they go. And I think it's the type of energy that we really need right now as a country and as a world. Energy from men that is transparent rather than masked or insincere or performative. This is cool. I feel like a radio host. I almost couldn't find my microphone as well, but we're here. So once the fellas join, we're going to chat about how we know each other, our backgrounds, and then get on into the works. I hope that everyone's having a wonderful Thursday evening, wherever it is that you reside.
Whoa,
I'm
here.
My goodness.
What's up, handsome?
Yeah, you are.
Oh,
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm so excited to be here.
It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you as well.
Yeah.
To everybody in the chat. My name's Nathan. Johnny's awesome. I love Johnny. He's a very good friend of mine, and I'm very excited to chat about all things being a man and also some big news.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to tell everybody in the chat how we met. I think that you should tell the story from your perspective, and I'll add some detail, and then we'll bring Jonathan on here. This is really cool. I'm excited. Actually, he's not here yet, so maybe we can just get going. So how do we know each other? How is it that two Ohio boys, I'm streaming in from New York, and you're in Lorain County, Ohio. How do we know each other? How do we meet?
Well, it was a fun little sunny day, and me and my best friend Sammy were walking through Crocker Park here in Ohio, and I just happened to see this beautiful, stunning man, Johnny Cole, and his lovely roommate at the time, Nina, walking out of a store, and I was just like, wow, these two have really awesome outfits on. I was like, I just had to let them know. I had to let them know. I was like, hey, I love your guys' outfits. And then all of a sudden, Johnny was like, can I have a hug? And I was like, of course.
Oh, brother, that was so beautiful. Your audio is getting a little choppy for me, so if you do have access to headphones, that might be wonderful for the remainder of the conversation. But I want to fill in and add some detail there to that beautiful story, because you're absolutely right. You and Sammy did approach one of my best friends, Nina, and I in the Bed Bath & Beyond parking lot. I had received some really good news that day regarding the high school program that I lead at Oberlin High School, or led up until recently, for high school boys. And as you said, I do men's work and lead men's groups with my organization, Hey Brother Co. And I'm very passionate about men's mental health, healthy masculinity, and a world in which men and boys are fully authentic, expressive, sincere, kind, caring, uplifting, and can be ourselves. So I think I had received some good news just around the grant funding for the program, or something was really going well. And you and Sammy just brought this amazing energy. Oh my gosh, the headset's incredible. I love that. The headset is everything to me. Yeah, you and Sammy just brought some wonderful energy, being like so kind and going out of your way to compliment Nina and I. And I was like, man, I need to tell these young guys something, because there aren't enough young men who are comfortable being sincere and like sociable and extroverted. I feel like there's this air of nonchalance that everyone's trying to have, and it's not cool to be like happy and excitable and kind. So I wanted to tell you, like, hey man, by the way that you are is fantastic. And you were 19 years old at the time. So I could tell that you guys were both pretty young. I'm almost 10 years older than you, which is crazy. And I wanted to just, affirm you and say like, hey, the way that you are is fantastic. Like, I'm so excited about how kind you are. And I run these men's groups. I think you would be a wonderful shoe-in. And that's how I got you like this.
You caught me. By the way, does this sound okay?
The audio quality is a lot better, but there's still some choppiness, I think. But we're being going to be joined by Jonathan. This is what happens when we do a live show, everyone. We do it live. There's going to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
I'm going to try one more thing.
Okay, but let's bring in one Jonathan Jacobs, who is a Call to Men, the wonderful nonprofit, A Call to Men. He's a board member there. Humanist and humorist. I love that. Mr. Jacobs. Hey.
I'm working on new titles for myself as I see fit.
I love that one. What is the other one? The Costco King?
Oh, well, I'm Costco King. I'm also local curmudgeon, but I thought I would bring a different energy this evening. People don't need curmudgeonly today.
No, people don't need curmudgeonly today. And the opposite of curmudgeon is the young man that I'm introducing you to now for the first time, Nathan Emmerling, who is
I'm so excited to meet you, Nathan.
A vibrant, vivacious, wonderful, pep in your step type of guy.
Well, I'm going to see if I can teach you the joys of a good complaint, because that's what makes life worth living.
Yeah, the joys of a good complaint. I used to say when I was a little kid that I love to whine, and my mom would always ask me, "Do you want some cheese with that wine?"
Well, what I think people don't understand about the complaint, and this is not the nature of this discussion, so I'll say this and then move on, is it's not often that I care about what I'm complaining about. It's that it's a compulsion. I have to comment. Someone must observe, critique, and engage in constructive dialogue around the problems in society. And I think that that's my calling.
Yeah, you fit that calling well, honestly, Jonathan. You're I always appreciate the peanut gallery that is you. And Mr. Emmerling, I miss the pink headphones.
Can you hear this, by the way?
We can't hear you. I think it might be a broadband issue, because the quality it sounds a little staticky. But I'm working with our fantastic Jay Nice with the Spice back end tech support. Maybe leave and come back in. And court jesters were very respected back in the day. Court jesters. It was a very tense position, though, because if you made the king or the royalty angry, or if they didn't like your joke,
you existed on a hairpin.
Yeah. So as we're waiting for Nathan to join back in, I'm going to set the stage. So this is going to be the space. How are you really doing? Is a space where we strip away that armor, take off our masks, and sit with each other in truth. So we're going to shoot the shit. We're going to talk about what's going on in our lives, and be vulnerable, authentic, provocative, real. So tonight we're talking about masculinity, politics, and power. So we're going to hold up a mirror to some of the systems that shape us as men, and then we're going to wrestle with the reality that too often those systems ask us to perform a version of manhood, toughness, domination, which is very relevant to our prior conversation on this stream. Then we turn our pain into anger instead of love. So we're starting this show because it's very difficult but necessary for us to look at the political rise and now violent legacy of men like Charlie Kirk. Charlie was a man who built his influence by fueling fear, white supremacy, gun violence, and a vision of manhood that was rooted in control over women's bodies and futures. So his death kind of makes me wonder what happens when men find their purpose in domination rather than connection, and how can we reclaim healthier, more courageous masculinities for ourselves and the next generation. So that's what we're wrestling with tonight. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
Right on.
Absolutely.
Am
Oh,
I
you
any
are
better yet?
Yeah, you sound perfect. You said pitch perfect. I feel like we could shift this entire show to a virtual a cappella group, a 3-man quartet.
I'm so glad. So I just want to say now that I actually am coherent to everybody. Jonathan, it's a pleasure meeting you. You're such a handsome
It's
guy.
wonderful to meet you.
I love the beard. And also, I did see your one Costco
Thank you.
post the other day, and I'm like, wow, this is another guy who likes Costco as much as I do. It's amazing.
Oh, it is it's my Disney World.
I have always said
love it.
that
It's just
Costco. I've always said that the Costco chicken bake is one of God's few perfect creations.
Never eaten it. One of the few things I've never had from there.
We'll get to that
Awkwardly.
later.
The problem is we could this sounds like the topic for the next episode. I will say that. we can diagnose the Costco menu.
Next up on Hey Brother, How Are You Really Doing is Sam's Club versus Costco and the Costco Chicken Bake, one of God's most perfect creations.
Yes.
I know people.
Cool.
I know people with opinions. We got to do it.
So, Nathan and Jonathan, I'd love for you guys to just kind of give a quick overview, who you are, where you're from.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I am Jonathan, and I always say, I live in Los Angeles, but for my ego, it's important, I'm from New York originally. And the best way to get to know me is through a paradigm that someone gave me when I was going through a difficult period of my life, which is that in life, you get to do 3 things: one thing for your heart, one thing for your mind, and one thing for your wallet. And for my wallet, I am a digital marketer, currently building my second agency called Loudmouth. For my head, community organizer, working to bring creative services to nonprofits and mutual aid groups. And for my heart, I'm engaged in men's work, where I have the pleasure of sitting on the board of A Call to Men. I run the West Coast side of things for Walking Talking Men, which is a group for men to make friends and walk together. And that's a little bit about me.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. I'm Nathan. I am not as interesting as Jonathan, but I'm still very glad to be here. I am 22 years old. I live in the bright, beautiful state of Ohio. And I love being a kind person. That's about all I can say. I really do try my best. And especially from everything that I've learned from Johnny and just growing these past couple of years, I've really taken a liking to spread all of this kindness onto other people and teach other men that it's okay not to be angry, and it's, okay to express your feelings. So
yeah. Oh,
that's me.
You're so sweet. You're also underselling yourself because you're a personal trainer and you are an avid anime enjoyer, and you are a future EMT, and you are the type of person that wants to lead in and help and truly model for others good energy, positivity, kindness, wholesomeness.
You
that's really...
know a lot more about myself than I do. Thank you.
And that's what we need. Yeah, it's because I know you, little brother. I've known you for 2 years. So yeah, let's shift a little bit. The reason why I brought you both into this conversation, first of all, because Jonathan, you serve on the board of A Call to Men, anime enjoyer. Yeah. So what are some of the other names that anime enjoyers get called, I wonder?
Weeaboo.
Weeaboo.
I'm not going to say that.
You did. You already did. So let's warm up the chat a little bit and ask you guys, first of all, Jonathan, hey brother, how are you really doing?
I appreciate you asking that. I would say, I'm feeling scattered, and I am feeling shook in the current moment. I would say scattered because anytime there is a seminal moment, which there have been way too many of in all of our lifetimes, it's difficult to figure out where to put your priorities and your energy and your focus, and to say, am I checking in with everyone else Yes, but have I checked in with myself and made sure to put care there? So today's been strange in that way. And, on the shook side of it, it's what everything that's transpired in the past 24 hours have told us about society, our culture, the people in our circles. It's bringing out things you're learning about people in your circles you hadn't thought about in years or decades. I'm sure everyone has seen the memes about, the person from high school is posting X today. And you're like, wow, have not thought about that person. And interesting to learn what they've become, because that's not necessarily who I knew them as previously. So that's some of what I've been carrying today.
Yeah. I resonate with that. I think we have some people in the chat resonating as well with being aggressive isn't necessarily good, but anger is not a moral emotion that we can moralize. Anger is not good or bad. It just is, right? And there's a lot of reasons to be angry. And I think anger helps us set boundaries. Anger helps us say no. Anger lets us know that something needs to stop. And so I think it makes sense to be angry at so many things that are going on in our personal lives and in the world. So thank you for your candor there. And also thank you for, we've got Red Dragon Investor. Thank you for your vulnerability, saying that you feel lonely and frustrated and lost in a world that you understand less and less. It feels like the Titanic. I totally get that sentiment. But I feel a lot more optimistic still about where the future will hold. I feel like with patriarchy and capitalism, it's much like a dying animal where it's at its most dangerous. We're in the death throes where that's when it lashes out the most, and when it knows it's about to go, it's cornered. And so I think things might heat up a little bit more, but eventually we're going to see the downfall of the dominant systems, which people like Charlie Kirk helped to not just perpetuate, but build up to and enforce. The swan song. I hope so. It is hard to say. I'm going to ask you, Nathan, how are you really doing? What's going on? What's going on for you today, man? How are you really doing?
I just want to say, while it's still on my mind, I wanted to piggyback off of what Red Dragon had said about aggression is not good, but a little anger is never wrong. I think one of the most important things that you ever taught me was to learn how to be able to sit with my anger and acknowledge it, because anger is such a powerful emotion. And even though, on a day-to-day basis, I could still get lost in that anger and let it take control. But being able to sit there, recognize it, and learn from it instead of lashing out from it is such a powerful thing to do. It's a very powerful emotion to have. But how am I really doing? I could also say maybe just the same thing Jonathan said, with almost feeling scattered. There's so much going on day-to-day life. Just like he said, always making sure you check in with everybody, everything that's just going on in day-to-day life. Am I going to be able to pay my bills? I need to go do this and that every single day. But we still somehow make it happen every day. And sometimes we do forget to check in with ourselves. I'm definitely guilty of that 100%. But I genuinely think I am doing well. I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, we're doing like a solid 7. And I think that's pretty good. That's not bad. So that is how I am doing.
Yeah.
I'm ready to discuss.
Yeah.
I'm so ready to discuss things.
Let's do it. So specifically, let's talk about the fact that Charlie Kirk is dead. And you said you had some thoughts on this. Both of you actually have texted me. We've been talking about this in various capacities, but Nathan, I haven't really heard from you. So for those of you who don't know, obviously Charlie Kirk was killed yesterday. He was shot, and I believe the suspect is still at large. Yes, Charlie. Wait, Quentin, are you being sarcastic? Had you not seen the news? He was shot at an event that he was speaking at in Utah. He was struck in the neck and has died shortly thereafter. And so there's been a lot of mixed. Oh, he's being sarcastic. Okay, cool. There's been a lot of mixed reactions to this. There's a lot of the country, I think, right now, like white evangelical Christians, like a lot of people are talking about how sad they are and that you shouldn't be assassinated for just speaking your opinions, and this is somehow an attack on free speech. Our leaders have, such as Donald Trump, have started to already try to snowball this and make it about the woke left, trying to assassinate characters within the conservative movement. And then you've got a lot of liberal like apologists who are like, violence is never the answer. Political violence should never happen. And we should find a way out of this without killing people like Charlie Kirk. And so there's a mixed bag of things. What do you guys think? What's going on? What does Charlie Kirk mean to you?
I would definitely like to say that actually before our stream today, a couple hours ago, me and my girlfriend had some very, very productive conversation about this. I mean, this entire thing, right? Because it's not like I'll never like openly celebrate somebody dying. It's like, whoopee, somebody just died, However, I never liked Charlie Kirk as a person, ever. All of his values were so completely out of whack. I mean, he was just a terrible person. And something that I had read about one of his panels that he had hosted about gun violence, and I think this is one of the biggest things that everybody has brought up, is that he had openly stated that, unfortunately, in order to protect our Second Amendment rights, people would have to die. And it's almost poetic that the person that says this is killed by gun violence. So,
yeah, absolutely. And he was speaking about kind of gun violence in a racist and transphobic way right up until he was killed, right? And so I think that Charlie Kirk's demise and was the consequence of the very same political rhetoric that he enforced. It was a product of the worldview that he had, where gun violence was seen as something that is necessary in a world in a country that upholds the Second Amendment. I agree. We got Dax Ahoy in the chat saying his views were vile and sought to hurt anyone who wasn't a white Christian or conservative. Yeah, I think that's true. Like, you can hold space for both. You can say, like, I don't want that man to die in front of his wife and children, and I think that that's horrible. And also, he was a bad person who showed no propensity towards growth and change and reconciliation with the views that were in favor of subjugating like so many different people. Honestly, like he was a Nazi, and has had clips where he's like quoted in saying things in German that are illegal or very, very faux pas in actual Germany because of the history they have there. He's said some crazy, deplorable things about African Americans and Black people in the United States, calling them blacks very regularly. I mean, he's just like, yeah, you could throw a dart at the wall of all the different Charlie Kirk clips, and you would not land on anything where it shows him being like a loving, kind person in favor of the good of humanity. Jonathan.
I think that there's so much to be said about this. It's also a minefield of a conversation. And I think the first thing that comes to mind for me as we're having this dialogue anywhere at any time is we have no idea what happened yet. And yet everyone is rushing to have opinion and commentary and demand other people have opinion and commentary on this issue. For all we know, Charlie Kirk was having an affair with somebody else's wife, and this person decided to do that to him. Now, the odds of that are much lower than what we're all speculating that this could be. But I use that as an example to say, like, our culture moves at this speed where we need to get to the end point before we do the work to get there. And this is like that action and that speed is a microcosm of how we tackle any problem as a culture. It's you needing me to jump to that conclusion and have a decision and an opinion is why we can't have nuanced conversation about things like gun control or ending gender-based violence or whatever topic you want to put in. So I think like before we even talk about the issue, I think it's so important that we all pause to acknowledge the meta conversation or the meta component of this conversation, which is that we need to sit down and break this down before we know anything about it. There's no shooter, the shooter is not in captivity. There were rumors being shared about engravings on a bullet, which is then pushing people to make a decision and have an opinion on it. I think it's unfortunate that we feel compelled to have to do this. Now, that said, it doesn't change who he was as a person. It doesn't change what he did. And I think, to your point, Nathan, I agree with you on this is never the way that we want difference and conflict to be resolved. But also history has shown us that sometimes righteous indignation and the pursuit of justice requires violence. And now I am not saying that this is one of those moments, but I am saying I'm a realist and I have seen what is required in the past. What I think is important in these moments is the way we are all being forced or being told we have to have empathy, which is something no one should claim someone should do for another person, especially when you have someone like Charlie Kirk, who regularly said, empathy is toxic, empathy is made up. I forget the exact quote off the top of my head. And I think that's where, sorry, go ahead, Johnny.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, how do we have someone in the chat talking about like differentiating between Charlie Kirk's faith and his Christianity and adherence to the Bible and then his politics. So like, how do we separate those? I'm finding in my life that it is increasingly difficult to separate someone's values from the way that they show up in society politically, right? Like, I think everything is political and everything is intertwined. So if from a values perspective, like I'm adhering to a religion that says I should, love thy neighbor, and then I get up on a stage and I say it's okay to kill a certain type of person, or it is okay to have a policy that strips parents from children and puts them in camps. It's okay to beat the shit out of people just because of their skin color. It's okay to allow 10-year-old girls to get to have to force them to give birth, even if it's through rape or incest. Like, that's not necessarily like loving or adherence to that same faith that I so-called like have. Yeah, I don't have a ton of religious people in my family though, which I feel like could be a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah.
I mean, I tend to align with what Dak has just said in the chat, which is like, I don't think you can differentiate them, right? It's like differentiating between someone's actions and words. They are both equally important, and we make an ultimate judgment and a decision on who we feel someone was. And that person contains multitudes, don't get me wrong. It's in the same way that I talk about, my relationship with my father. There's bad and there's good. These things both exist. And hypothetically, if we found out, Charlie Kirk gave $1 million to fight hunger in the South and build food banks, we can acknowledge that that's a good thing that somebody did, but that doesn't have to change some calculation of what this person was, because this person did harm as well. I think, when I look at this, it's not so much bifurcating the person as it is to say, like, there are people who probably had a good experience of him. And I have no right to tell them that they don't get to remember him that way, but they have no right to tell me how I'm supposed to remember him either. Right. Like, I think what to me, and I bristle at with so much in this situation, and obviously we haven't even talked about like the boys and men component of this yet, but the cultural component of why are we so focused on policing each other and how we respond to events and situations like these? It is all about, you didn't say this, you're not doing this right, you're supposed to behave this way. Like, all we want to do is critique and control.
Yeah.
Why is that the default?
Nathan, let's hear from you. What are you seeing in your community in Lorain County, Ohio, right? And you're quite a bit younger than Jonathan and I. And I know, you've got different community and circles of family and friends. So what's going on for you? How are you experiencing the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death with your people?
I think one of the most major things I've noticed is on social media, the amount of sharing of posts about his deaths and like saying, hey, pray for his family and such and such. However, this same day, mass shooting in a Colorado school happens, but it doesn't receive as nearly as much press as the death of Charlie Kirk receives, right? So I see on everybody's stories that I know, pray for this man, blah, blah, blah. They'll post 3 different things that say violence is never the answer. This should have never happened. This is horrible. Or even some people saying the left is out of control. I've even seen people say that they're ready for a civil war, which I think is absolutely absurd. However, after
Andrew Tate
posting,
tweeted that. He just tweeted the word civil war.
It's great. However, after seeing all of these posts that everybody shares, all of a sudden, after these posts of Charlie Kirk, they feel the need to post, oh, and also I feel bad for the kids in Colorado. Where was the moment of prayer for the children in Colorado in Congress this morning when, the children were shot? It's like, where was that? It didn't happen. I actually genuinely almost saw no coverage on the school shooting in Colorado since there was so much coverage of Charlie Kirk's death. Right. Yeah. And one thing that I was told was that I can't remember the quote verbatim. It was shared to me that your death is only as important as how much money you have. And I think that was something that was huge.
And let's also agree it's often the color of the skin too.
As well. Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking it reminds me a lot of like 2020, like Black Lives Matter when George Floyd was murdered. And at a certain point in that summer, everyone posted like a black square on their Instagram. And it was a lot of folks that had never actually said anything or like verbalized, hey, like Black Lives Matter and George Floyd was murdered and we have a problem with police brutality and violence and the carceral justice system's fucked. Like no one was saying any of those things, but they posted this black square. And I think that's kind of how it feels right now. It's like no one who has said anything about the evisceration of Palestinian children and maybe their feeds. I don't know how it's possible, but they're not seeing the crazy footage of like hospitals and schools and children being dug out of the rubble and crying and wailing and screaming and grief and blood and like, and nothing, silence, nothing. Mm-hmm. But it's Charlie fucking Kirk is the first person that gets them to access empathy and understand. Oh man, violence is not the answer. Like, wow, it really makes you think. Like, moment of stuff. Like, what? Are you kidding me?
That's one thing that really got to me was I was in a group chat with some people, and some people were saying this disgusts me that this man was murdered all because he had opinions. You didn't speak on, the 100 children that died yesterday in Gaza. That didn't seem to disgust you, right? But this one random white guy who likes to talk complete nonsense somehow disgusts you. The same man that said, unfortunately, to keep our Second Amendment, some people are going to die and it's worth it. Or the same man who has said, that trans people are sick. It's unfortunate.
Speaking of trans people being sick, Charlie, we got someone in the chat talking about how, Charlie was upstanding in his representation of the Bible because he decried being gay as a sin, which is stated in the Bible. And, everyone sins and Jesus died for those sins. One should be aware of the sin. But there's no reason to stop being who one is. It's nonsense that gay people automatically go to hell. Yeah, I don't think gay people automatically go to hell. And I think it's, just one translation of the Bible, Janus with some spice, which is, like being gay. There's nothing wrong with being gay. There is something wrong with being hateful and being prejudiced and regularly saying, hey, it's okay for this group of people to be mistreated or oppressed because they're going to hell anyway, right? That is, quite frankly, like evil and vindictive. And these are the types of, opinions and perspectives that when held by people in power or people with large media platforms and political sway create violence in communities and create violence in families and in homes. I think that's clear. Charlie was a bigot in so many different senses. Like we can pick any one of them, but I don't. And it's so strange to me. Like that's the thing that you pick out from the Bible as, hey, he was like a good Christian and adhered to things. I'd love to hear more from you, Red Dragon, about what are some ways that like Christianity and faith shows up in your life, and how do you live out those values, and do you think Charlie adhered to them? But Nathan, I want to hear from you or Jonathan on like what is the vision of masculinity that Charlie Kirk espoused? Like what was he saying about manhood and masculinity?
So I'll say it's funny that you give that prompt, because this was a topic I was about to go into, which is I think like I'm going to back into this from a different direction, but to say, something that I really bristled at today was Ezra Klein's article, and I had shared it with you about that was headlined, Charlie Kirk practiced politics the right way, or whatever it was. There was some variation in that language. I'm paraphrasing. And that really ticked me off. I just don't like the idea that we're saying there's a good and a bad version of practicing politics. And no one gets to make that judgment. No one gets to decide who is valid and who is not. You can disagree or agree, but that's not someone's role there. And also, it legitimized Kirk's form of communication, which I think is the perfect kind of way to get into his performance of masculinity, right? People would come to you and say, well, Charlie Kirk liked to engage in debate. He liked to engage in dialogue. He went into the lion's den and would argue with his enemy. I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. Charlie Kirk would use logical fallacies. He would regurgitate and parrot misinformation. And just because he's using his words rather than a weapon, just because he's using words and not memes, does not make him a more legitimate communicator of issues than someone else, and does not make him a better advocate. What Charlie Kirk did, he didn't debate, he owned. That was his goal. His goal was to own the libs. He wanted to have great 30-second spots on college campuses that would play well on YouTube and Instagram. And I think that concept of owning the libs, of domination, of control, of smashing down, is the perfect lens in which to understand the masculinity that he performed. It wasn't, I'm going to convince you. It wasn't, let's have a conversation. It's, let's step into the arena and fight. And I'm going to beat you down until you're so embarrassed. And what does that do? That's what brings people around him, because we naturally do tend in our animal brains to gravitate towards strength in that way. The whole point is to become better than that. But that is how I would define him and his masculinity.
Yeah.
I think that the power aspect is so huge. That was something I had discussed earlier with my girlfriend, was that, like, what does this say about how we raise our boys in society? How we bring them up, and it's all about power, right? Like we've discussed many, many times about, teaching our kids, don't be a pussy, don't cry, such and such. And I think this all leads to certain situations like these, like his death, or even like what Charlie Kirk debated about. A lot of the things that he had also debated about was, being like the man, right? And like how you had just said about, these 30-second videos of, owning the liberals, or doing the big booms and, getting all of the big reactions. I think it all stems from how we've been raised as children, and how we bring our boys up in society. And also the situation of him being murdered. This could have been somebody that had so much pent up anger, and their only way to show it off, or the only way for them to be seen, was to murder somebody.
Yeah. Red Dragon, I want to ask, Red Dragon, what are your problems? If it, even in your framing, right? Like being gay is one of the problems that one can have under a Christian lens, because it's a sin, right? So like, what are your problems? And thou shalt not judge. I know that's a common one, right? So it's good that you say you don't judge. But if you feel comfortable sharing, like, what are some of the problems that you struggle with as a man, and how do you reconcile those with your faith? Because I think that Charlie Kirk's masculinity, and like how we raise boys in this country, as Nathan was saying, is to be invulnerable and to dominate and to never show any sign of weakness, and to like look for perfection, right? There is an ideal type of man that you can be, that you should strive for. And if you're not that type of man, then you're a failure. You watch porn, you lie, you smoke. These are all sins. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for that vulnerability. I appreciate the candor there. We can raise our hands on chat if you watch porn before, or if you've smoked before, or, you know, yeah, or if you've lied before.
I may have done all three of these today. Who knows?
Yeah, right. Like no one's perfect, and so that right there, I like that we're all having this moment together as men, saying like, yeah, we do these things. Everyone has vices, but we don't deserve to die for those vices that we have, nor do we deserve to be subjugated in society. And have our rights stripped from us. And yet that is exactly what Charlie Kirk, Republicans, conservatives, and fascists are trying to do to certain types of people. For example, gay people, queer people, trans people, people of color. There are certain demographics where those sins, or their perceived sins, their perceived slights from the likes of Charlie Kirk were too grave, and they deserve domination and subjugation, and violence, and that is inherently violent. Like that's why I think there's this contrast, between like, yes, he was shot, which feels like this physical act of violence, but Charlie Kirk was a violent man. He was violent with his language, he was violent with his style of communication, and he was violent in the things that he suggested were acceptable and thus normalized in society. So I don't know. I think fuck Charlie Kirk. I'm sorry that his kids and wife saw that happen. That's horrible and very sad. And also, like, I cannot respect any man that's whole identity is built upon punching down and being horrible and being cruel, and then painting it over with this veneer of respectability politics. That's another thing that really pisses me off, is there's a lot of people in like either the men's work community or the men's coaching community, and people who are just generally saying like, hey, like, man, like you shouldn't be killed just for having an opinion. Like, what happened to freedom of speech? And I'm like, if you're a Nazi, like that's not like a neutral opinion. That's not the same as saying I don't like chocolate milk. You know, it's just not for me. No one's shooting you because you don't like chocolate milk.
Right.
Like no one's canceling you because you don't like chocolate milk. People are canceling.
That's the other thing to me is like, again, we still don't know what happened. I want to continue to reiterate. I think that's really important, but it's also this whole thing about this being an imposition on free speech. Excuse me, this is not an imposition on free speech. This is not the government censoring him or stopping him or preventing him. This is someone for whom, again, we have no idea why they did this. This is someone who had a problem with what he said, who took the, let's say, the worst possible option of all the options available for how to engage with someone you disagree with, and did that. That is not an imposition on his First Amendment rights.
Yeah,
that's an imposition.
This is the result of them. This is said in chat. It's a result of his free speech.
Exactly. And like, he chose to use his speech to say things that could put him in harm's way because of how they may have affected other people. And again, I'm not saying you got what you deserved, but I am saying you fucked around and found out.
Yeah. And it's a bunch of white people that are like, what? You can't have an opinion anymore? Man, you shouldn't be killed for your opinion, like in front of your wife and kids. Like, what's going on? And like, but it's not an acceptable opinion. It's not opinion. It's like hateful ideology. And if you fuck around, you will find out. I feel like where Nathan and I are from, like Lorain County, Ohio, there's a lot of like evangelical white Christian people, and thought is like super common. A lot of folks that believe in, I don't know, like any of the things that Charlie Kirk stood for, watch a lot of Fox News, are MAGA, and are also, Nathan, you unmuted, go for it.
I'd say from where we're from, like the Lorain County, Erie County area, I'd say it's as much as there are like evangelical Christian believers, there's also a lot of, diversity from where we're from, because I will say I've definitely met the handful of, people that are, you can't be gay. I've also been in relationships with people that say, hey, being gay is not right. It's not okay, which is absurd. It's crazy. But there's also a lot of people that like I live with now, and I also have close family with people that are transgender and gay. That I mean, you get it everywhere, really. And I'm sorry, I guess I kind of lost the point or the question that was being brought on to me.
We're just yapping. Let me ask this.
Well, I wanted to ask
go
a
ahead.
question. Is that okay? So I'm
Absolutely.
curious because you're both two guys from the Midwest, and you both engage with young men and boys in schools. We talk a lot about how Kirk's pipeline was young men and boys, high school and college age, who would get exposed to him either in person or online. I'm curious, in your work, have you encountered young men sharing his narratives? And if so, what have you done when met with those?
I haven't seen anyone, like none of my students, especially since this year there's a phone ban. That's such a good question. So they haven't like shared any of his videos with me. I'm sure that there are students who watch his stuff, but I haven't actually heard a single student like say, yeah, Charlie Kirk said, empathy is a made up word, and he prefers sympathy. Like I align with that. So I haven't heard that, but I have seen and heard of boys who enjoy rage bait style content and love like the inflammatory nature with which he speaks. And yeah, that I think is why he became so popular. I don't think anyone was just like, yeah, Charlie Kirk himself has really great values. I think it's more like, hey, he's entertaining, or he gives me a sense of righteousness or power because he is so judgmental. And if he gets on the phone, or not a phone, but if he gives a mic to an 18-year-old college kid that he can speak more quickly and more articulately and eloquently than, he sounds smarter than, and he can own, a libtard or whatever, a blue-haired feminist, then it makes him look like he's in control, like he's powerful. And I think a lot of young men both appreciate the entertaining aspect of that, and they don't feel empowered. That, like, as Nathan was saying, like it's hard to pay your bills right now. Like there's not a lot of economic opportunity. It's hard to get into school. There aren't any union jobs. So the average, I think, young man, particularly young white man, is not feeling whatever white privilege or male privilege is based on what they think that might be, right? Because no one has like a Kimberly Crenshaw definition of intersectionality just in their public school, no one's being given gender studies classes or kind of like critical race theory on some of these concepts. So based on what young men think that is, I think a lot of them are like, no, what are you talking about, male privilege? Like, that's ridiculous. And I feel disempowered. Thank you, Dax Ahoy. Have a great rest of your evening. And yeah, we've got someone else in the chat. Finding the exchange between right-wing Christians and left-wingers fascinating. Many leftists seem to dislike Christoon. I don't understand why. I have left-wing colleagues. I get along with them well. I think that a lot of left-wing people hate Christianity the way that it is practiced in the United States. Like a lot of Americans and like leftists and like young people hate the model of evangelical Christianity that has created a puritanical culture that has informed a lot of our social norms, because a lot of the way that Christianity is practiced by most denominations that are like the primary denominations is like hateful, frankly, and hypocritical. Like there's a lot of contradictions. And so that's what I think a lot of people are frustrated with. I don't think that there are as many leftists that are like, all religion is terrible and bad, and if you're a Christian, like, fuck you. It's more like, oh, like if you go to church and talk about loving people and praying for good things to happen and like, praying for bad things to stop, but then you also go and scream at teenage girls who need reproductive health care and say that they're going to hell and they suck. Like, you're a hateful person, and that's not practicing love that your faith purports to have. So I think that's what people are frustrated with.
Right. I think there's a lot of very good values that you can get out of almost any religion. There's a lot of good things that they can teach, but however, with various organized religions nowadays, it can deem very hateful. We're actually quite lucky enough. I personally don't go to church, but there's a church right around the corner from us that always has a pride flag on their banner outside, and that has always said like LGBTQ plus people welcome, we love you all. But there's still those churches everywhere that will not welcome those people.
Classic Ohio.
Right. At one corner, you see a church that says, hey, everybody is welcome, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like. And then around the other corner, it says, are you sure you want to be gay? You might go to hell. So, or what are those, hey, what are those big signs on the road? What do they say usually?
Like billboards?
Yeah.
Abortion is murder.
Yeah, abortion is murder. What else did they say? Oh, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Yeah.
Such
Yeah,
like that. Like that's such a prime example of religion, like using religion against people. And that's why a lot of people on the left, don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, why is that the thing? Like, there are so many different, areas of a religious doctrine or philosophy that have to do with like uplifting people or charity or philanthropy or service or community or connectedness. And yet there's a large amount of like money that goes into funding advertising that oppresses people and criticizes or hates on people. So that's why people are frustrated. Like no one actually can, and also, Catholic Church doesn't exactly have a great like track record as well, just in terms of a lot of like the sexual abuse and a lot of things that happen behind closed doors within churches, how church and church figureheads and even like the patriarchal model of the church that prioritizes like men as leaders and discourages any questioning of their leadership and of their authority. Like that is a breeding ground for a lot of abuse, and it happens really, really like commonly. And so I want to ask you guys, like, why do movements that are rooted in domination, like white supremacy, like misogyny, like gun culture, like the things that Charlie Kirk stood for, why do they appeal to so many young men?
That's a big ass question, and I think there's a multitude of factors to that. I think what comes to mind for me is that, again, I do think it's fair to look at what Charlie Kirk did and say Charlie Kirk was a groomer. He wanted to reach men when they were young so he could ideologically groom them to become what he wanted to align with his worldview. And I think you target that group because the minds are impressionable. And I would argue that, again, through this kind of Owen Woods mentality did, I think a lot about that old adage about the, like when you're doing an argument, when the law is on your side, you pound the law. When, emotion's on your side, I forget what it is, but it ends with, but when nothing's on your side, you like pound the table. You just try to be the loudest, the craziest, the most aggressive. And I think when you're adrift and uncertain of who you are, when you're in a world like ours that feels untethered, unpredictable, uncertain, you have no idea how you're going to pay the bills, what your job is. You're seeing your own parents or parental figures struggle in that way. Seeing someone who has this dominance-based masculinity, it's attractive because it represents to you stability. And it's the loudest voice in the room that everyone else is flocking towards. It ends up having this kind of power and control of the crowd towards you. So I think it's the perfect thing to fill a vacuum.
Yeah. I concur. There's a sense of powerlessness amongst young men. And as Quentin said in the chat, like patriarchy tells us to seek power, and that power means domination. And so if I don't feel powerful in many realms of my life, I'm going to cling on to whatever I can or gravitate towards whatever I can to reclaim that power and to feel in control. And if I can't do that in my personal life directly, then I'm going to follow along to men who I see doing it, or who are contributing to changing our society and changing the culture in a way that will get me power, or preserve power. And they have, I don't know, there's so many different directions to go, but like white replacement theory, right? Like that's something that white nationalists and a lot of Christians and Charlie Kirk and a lot of Republicans and conservatives are really scared of and talk about a lot, right? Is like this idea that eventually people of color are going to erase the pure Aryan race, and white people are going to get like left behind and forgotten. So there's this like fear there.
Well, I apologize. I know Nathan has to answer. I have to run. I have somewhere to be at 7:00, and if you know LA traffic, it means I got to get in the car. So, gents, I apologize. Johnny, thank you so much for having me on. I hope I get to join a conversation again. And Nathan, it was wonderful to meet you. I look forward to more chances to connect. Thank you all for tuning in and watching, and I will watch the rest of the conversation from the car. Take care, guys.
Drive safe.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah. So Nathan, did you ever have any moments of like almost falling down the alt-right pipeline, or almost like, getting into that style of content? I feel like too much of a, oh really? Damn.
I never So I never really got heavily into the alt-right content. But I will say, when I was in high school, I would say like my freshman, sophomore year of high school, I did not understand, the pronouns they, them, or I did not understand somebody transitioning into they, them. And, back then, I don't know if you remember, but I used to watch a YouTuber called Leafy is Here. And now Leafy is Here was a very bad YouTuber, and almost every video he made was hateful. Every single one. And it was, I'm sure you've heard the jokes multiple times, but somebody coming out and saying like, oh, I identify as an Apache helicopter, something like that, right? He would make those jokes consistently, and I'd sit there and be like, yeah, this kind of makes sense. This guy kind of makes sense. And he's also really popular on YouTube and gets a lot of views, so he must be right. Right. And then as I grew more and more, I'm like, hey, you know what? If somebody wants to be referred to as a they or a them, or he, she, they, whatever, it doesn't matter, because it has no effect on my life. And if it makes them feel good, and I think it's just simply being respectful. My girlfriend's has a transgender sister, and I've only known her as a she, and I will only refer to her as she. Right? That's all I've ever known them as. So that is how I will refer to them.
Yeah.
So as I've grown, I think it's all about just, and the right hates this. The right hates this, but I do care about other people's feelings and how people feel. And I think that's completely okay. It's normal to understand how people feel and care about what other people feel like. To piggyback off of what you said earlier about like why young men are so attracted to this, I think these young men, look to these older big influencers, like, and measure their success, like all the cars they have, the money they have, the women that are around them in bikinis in their videos and such, and they see that and they're like, well, this guy's values must be right? Like he's talking about this and that, he must be right? And not only that, but like I said earlier, it kind of stems on how we were grown up as men. And I think you can relate to this as well, about growing up, not being a pussy, not crying, rub some dirt on it, such and such like that. It stems from a lot of that. So I think we grow up almost being hateful, and not just from who we are, but from what we've been taught.
Yeah, absolutely. So because we've been taught to suppress our feelings and to tough it up and tough it out, whatever else, we start to kind of despise other people's feelings and think lesser of them. And that's who
Right.
Charlie Kirk is. That's who a lot of like, again, like conservative Christian nationalists, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, a lot of like Joe Rogan, a lot of those guys like see feelings as weakness. And so they have a lot of hateful things to say if you express yourself in some capacity. And so you start to love people who say things like facts don't care about your feelings. Like, well, are you triggered? Did I make you mad? Like rage bait content is inherently cruel.
Mhm.
And it is like to try to rage bait someone is cruel. It's not funny or entertaining. Like it is a lower form of comedy that's based around trying to hurt someone. And
Right.
I see Red Dragon here in the chat talking about like said that, you know, abortion, the church doesn't mix well, and he thinks that abortion is murder, but every woman has to decide for herself, and you shouldn't make it harder for women who are considering abortion by judging them and restrict. So I think that's amazing. Like that's truly such a rare opinion. Why is it that that is such a rare opinion for Christians to have in this country, right? Like why is that? And let alone that there's a lot of Christian lawmakers and policymakers who decry abortion and judge women terribly for receiving reproductive health care, life-saving health care. And yet they have in their private lives mistresses who they get abortions for like that and take them, you know, to different states and pay for them. And
Yeah, I mean, Charlie Kirk's stand on abortion is so absurd. I mean, in the one video, the woman asks him, what if your young daughter, 10-year-old daughter was to give birth and it was cause of rape? And he said, unfortunately, she's going to give birth. And even though it's life-threatening, it's quite disgusting.
Yeah. That is forcing something on someone. Like being pro-life is not like pro-life doesn't mean you're pro-life, because pro-lifers don't care about kids. They don't care about the genocide in Gaza. They don't care about homeless people, the carceral justice system. They don't care about any number of things. They don't care about veteran suicide in a real tangible way.
Right.
It's just, I don't want women to have access to health care, but as soon as the baby is born and as soon as it's a citizen of the world, bootstrap theory, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, not my tax dollars.
Right, exactly. As soon as that baby is born, I do not want to give it free lunches. You are not getting free school lunch out of my tax dollars.
Right. So pro-life is not pro-life. It's actually just anti-choice, which is to force someone to have an experience, which is to force your view on someone, to force your opinion to change someone else's experience of their bodily autonomy.
Right. I just want life to exist in this world. I just don't want to help it.
Right.
I'll fend for myself.
Red Dragon, I just want to say that, views about to hurt people, to hurt women, being racist, being a Nazi, that's not a strange view. It's an unacceptable one, right? Like strange is again being like, oh, I bite my ice cream with my teeth. I don't feel cold on my teeth. It's like, oh, that's a little weird, dude, but go off. Like, eat your ice cream, get after it.
I do bite my ice cream, but okay.
I bite my popsicles sometimes, but my teeth get too,
okay.
Fair enough. But it's strange. It's like, okay, you do your thing, and I got to learn to deal with that, even if it makes me uncomfortable a little bit. But to have, again, ideologies that are rooted in hatred and hurting other people, and then they are held by people that have enough influence to change our culture or change the laws in our country or change, the systems of our nation that give people access to education, access to healthcare or lack thereof, access to housing or lack thereof. That is dangerous, and it's not just strange. Oh, I got to learn to deal with it. It's also very easy to say learn to deal with it when you are not existing in an identity that is directly oppressed and subjugated by some of these ideas or opinions, right? Or some of these beliefs. So, for example, when white men are like, man, like you can't just shoot someone for saying an opinion. It's like, yeah, man, because like the racist asshole and like the misogynist isn't the person that's trying to hurt you. So it is to you, it doesn't maybe directly feel like it affects you personally. And so, yeah, like it makes sense that you're feeling that way, but it doesn't make it not bad. Right? Like, of course you would have that opinion. I've seen this a lot. There's a lot of like white men, again, in the men's work and the men's coaching space. They're like, man, like this is so tragic. Like, oh, you can't just like whatever. I'm like, nothing about the Palestinian genocide from you. Nothing. As soon as it's a white man, when it's brown bodies, it doesn't register for you and your humanity and your empathy. And as soon as it's a white man, you're like, oh, this is too far. The left is it's going too far. I think
We're
that's
going
ridiculous.
to civil war because of one white man. That's what's going to happen.
Dude, Elon Musk tweeting that the only option is to stand and fight, right? Like, I think that, again, we're at this like critical mass turning point, and things like this, this event, and Charlie Kirk's murder are going to continue to escalate what is an already politically tense and terse situation. And I think that we're at this breaking point. Again, where capitalism and patriarchy and the dominant power structures are dying, and we're ready for some change. Oh, German Christian. Well, thank you for being on the stream. That's cool. I don't know if you live in America, but Red Dragon. If you love nation operations debate, you simply have to have that too. Otherwise, there would be only. So it's interesting you say that, because like in Germany, some of Charlie Kirk's viewpoints are not acceptable, right? Like he would not be welcomed to say the things that he does or to host the types of events that he does. In Germany, they would be like, nope, we got a really bad history with people that say stuff like this, you know? So he can't, like, so that's very interesting to me. And thank you so much.
Did you see the video that he had posted maybe a couple weeks ago, where I believe he was in South Korea? Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was in a native country, or not a native country, sorry. He was in a foreign country, and he had posted some big lawn, and he was like, look at this big space. Everybody's in plush seats. This would not happen in America. This would be shut down in 3 minutes. Guns would be ablazing, blah, blah, blah. But he's the same man that says, yeah, we got to keep our guns, you know?
Yeah.
You know, if the left wants us to take away our guns. That's one thing that really sets me off, that, you know, I've been discussing with people about, is that I personally don't think, now, I'm not going to speak for everybody. This is my viewpoint. But I don't think the left wants to take away guns. I personally don't think we should take away all guns. But obviously there has to be some sort of gun laws to help, you know, regulate our country. You know, every other country in the world has gun laws. And yet we don't see nearly as many problems over there as we do here.
I agree. I also think, I don't know, I got a lot of homies that are on the like super left side of things that are like, hey, trans people, go buy guns. You know, they're coming, right? Like Arm Your Friends is an organization and an account that I follow that does like weapons training and stop the bleed trainings and certifications, because they are themselves preparing for, you know, response to state actors who will be and continue to be violent, and or militias like the Proud Boys and, you know, white supremacist organizations who are militarizing and are arming themselves. And so it's I don't know where I was going with that, just to say that like there's people that also feel like, no, you know, you should prepare yourself, and who are pro Second Amendment, and think that some of the gun laws and gun reform that is being proposed is too harsh. But I don't know. It's that's a really tough one. I don't own guns, have never. I think that it would be dangerous for me to do so, just given my experiences with and struggles with my mental health. Like when I started my first job out of college in Raleigh, North Carolina, I had coworkers that were, you know, good old Southern boys, and they all own guns, like handguns, and they all asked me like why I didn't have one, and that I should get like a concealed carry permit and I should buy one, and they'd like show me the ropes and stuff. And I just said like, no, 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 no. But at that time when I was 23, I wasn't dealing with my undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder. I was suffering from like terrible self-esteem and these kind of like heightened euphoria, like pseudomania, and then sometimes terrible like low lows. And my mental health was not stable, and I had suicidal ideation, and I ended up having to tell them because they kept asking me about it. I was like, hey man, like I just don't want one. I don't want one. And then I was like, yo, I don't think it would be safe for me to own this, because for me to have like the option on hand, not really what's good. Like it's not good for anyone.
Exactly.
And yeah. So anyway, but I support the homies, like specifically my trans friends that are training regularly and going on rucks and like, fuck yeah, dude, get after it. That's not my role in the resistance and the movement for liberation. I can carry heavy things, and I would love to get a Stop the Bleed certification. And I can put my body in between other bodies, but I don't think that I'm going to be maybe the direct firearm touting combat guy to go and do something kind of crazy. But I got homies who can do that.
Got homies, call them up.
Exactly. So yeah, I think we're kind of like maybe winding down a little bit here on the stream. What would you tell to young men right now that are feeling like a sense of loss from Charlie Kirk's death, and who are struggling to find role models, and one of their role models just got capped? What would you tell to young men?
It's time to grow up and cry a little. It's time to let your emotions out. Okay. You're not being well. I was going to say you're an adult now. You're allowed to cry. You don't have to listen to your parents. But I guess for the young ones, and I'm thinking back to like my high school days, or even like middle school, and sitting there watching my favorite influencers. Like, wow, I want to be just like these guys growing up. It is really, really tough. It's really tough because a lot of manosphere and, Charlie Kirk, Andrew Tate, Donald Trump presences are so big in the media, and they're just constantly growing that it's so hard to find those ones like you, or one of my favorite influencers on Instagram, and his name, Jason Wilson. Who Jason Wilson is. I love Jason Wilson. He's awesome. It's like, I wish more and more young men could find somebody like that. Please just look at 2 of those videos and get sucked in, please. Or even his book that he released, The Man the Moment Demands, which I still have not yet to get my hands on, which is really unfortunate. I really want a copy. But it seems like such an easy question you've asked me, but it also is hard at the same exact time about what I would say. Lean on others. Don't be afraid to lean on your friends. And if your friends are selling you, don't be a pussy. Stop crying. It might be time to find new friends. That's about all I can say. I feel like that's a hard question. It's hard. But that's why we need more spaces like this. We need more spaces.
We do. Quentin said in the chat, he would say to young men, I'm scrolling through.
Yes,
you'd be surprised at how many people love your authentic self.
Yeah, that's huge. That is huge. Yeah. That's one thing I've always strived to be, is I'm not going to act a certain way for anybody. I am who I am.
Yeah. That's a struggle that we all constantly go through, though, too, right? It's like I struggle with that all the time, is the, like people who love me for me, and who even is the real me, because I've spent so much of my life trying to perform a version of manhood or perform a version of likability, or like, oh, I have this collection of positive qualities. This is why people like me, is because of these qualities, right? And so I should like lean into those more. And it's only through, it's through like a lot of therapy, a lot of men's work, and building these really close relationships like I have with you, that I have healed tremendously and understood like, oh man, like all of me is welcome, like the ditzy, chaotic, disorganized, like ADHD version of me, the forgetful version of me, the bad communicator, poor communicator in me, and then also the like friendly, charming, kind, energetic, loving, giggly, vivacious presence, the versions of me that are clumsy and sweet, like those every part of me is worthy and enough. And so that's what I would also tell. I think that is the quote of the night. Like, a lot of more people will love your authentic self, and if you are scared to even explore who your authentic self is, like, man, I want to give you a hug, Quentin. I hope you're coming to the marketing.
I was
summit.
just thinking the same thing. My closeted high school self is healing, which is, I completely resonate with that.
Dude, same. I had, like in high school and middle school, I had like the F slur written on my locker multiple times. Like all through college, I've had men try to start fights with me in bars and call me the F slur. I got pushed off of fraternity steps because, one of the frat bros was like, we don't let F slurs in here. And I just spent a lot of my life trying to be like, I'm not gay. I'm not queer. There's no, and so now in the past few years that I'm like, no, I'm fucking queer and loving and kind and excited about this aspect of myself. I resonate with that. Like my high school boy is like, what the fuck? Like, how are you saying that out loud? Like, oh my gosh, like, how are you? And I'm like, oh, it's because it's important to be yourself. Let's I think let's wind down. I'm gonna see. I think this has been the first episode of Hey Brother, how are you really doing? And after this episode, I'm feeling a lot more connected to you. Very grateful for you. Thank you so much for joining me. You and Jonathan taking time out of your evening. I hope to have you on again. We can keep talking about things. Thank you so much to everyone that was in the chat contributing. Thank you to Red Dragon for talking about your perspectives and values, and engaging, Quentin for tapping in, Jenna and Jay Nice with the spice. This was awesome, and I'm really looking forward to the next one.
I appreciate you for having me. Hopefully, and it was also it was lovely meeting Jonathan as well. Very well spoken, and I can tell a very, very smart person. Hopefully, next time I won't stumble on my words as much, and I'll be a little bit more prepared next time.
Dude, don't beat yourself up at all. I don't like hearing that. You're amazing. I love you so much, and I look forward to the next time we get to chat.
Yeah, man, I love you too. I'm excited. I can't wait.
Cool. All right. Be well. Bye-bye.